Welcome to the Stirring the Gumbo Pot podcast, the podcast about the history, the culture, and the accomplishments of Black people. This podcast aims to inspire, educate, empower, and celebrate the lives of Black folk. I am your host, the Cajun Peach, and thank you for tuning in. Now let's get this pot stirring. Welcome to episode 4, everyone. I am your host, the Cajun Peach. Today's show is kind of like a little milestone for me because I feel like I'm in a much better place than the last few episodes. I think I'm still a little nervous, but for the most part, the fear factor is gone. I'm not as nervous. I'm not as afraid. I have more courage. So I'm a living example of what I put out there into the universe. And so I'm feeling a little more comfortable now behind the microphone. So yeah, I feel good about it. So on with the show. It's dedication time. So as you all know, every episode I dedicate to someone, right? So past few episodes I've dedicated to my mom and Miss Toni Morrison. I also had a show dedicated to Miss Iyanla Van Zant, who is my spiritual mother. But in today's episode, I'm bringing it back home to Louisiana. So today's episode is dedicated to my sister, attorney Shawan Jackson Bernard. And so I'm going to read a little short bio of her background so you all will get a better understanding as to why I'm dedicating my show to my sister. Shawan is an entrepreneur and a community servant. She's an attorney and sole owner of Bernard Law Firm, LLC in New Orleans, Louisiana. Her firm focuses on providing legal services to clients in the New Orleans in the areas of family law, domestic abuse, children in need of care, education law, and other civil matters. Shawan also provides services as a mediator and is a qualified custody and visitation mediator, civil mediator, and children's attorney. She's a founding member and current president of the Lower Ninth Ward Voter Coalition. She works to empower her community through the power of voting. She also seeks to involve high school students and youth voters in civic engagement and voter education. Her work with other like-minded organizations have afforded students opportunities to participate in dialogues, surveys, community service, and to develop ideas around the issues of voter education and civic engagement. Last year, her organization was instrumental in advocating for voting registration access for all qualified high school students in New Orleans. Her efforts have helped to yield more than 5,000 new 18 to 20-year-old voters this year in New Orleans alone. Shawan is also the vice president and director of the Family Justice Legal Center, where she provides legal assistance to victims of domestic violence. She relies upon her work and experience as a children's attorney, school administrator, public defender, and youth advocate to aid and contribute to the Governor's Advisory Board of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. She's also the chairperson of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, which is the NAACP, the New Orleans branch, where she serves as the legal redress committee. She graduated from Southern University Law Center with her Juris Doctorate degree. She is a graduate of the University of New Orleans, where she received a Bachelor of Science degree in Marketing and a Master of Science degree in Educational Leadership. She also received her post-certification in Mathematics Education and a Master of Computer Information Systems degree from Southern University at New Orleans. She's a proud alumni of the Joseph S. Clark Senior High School, which is in the Treme neighborhood in New Orleans. She is married and a mother of 2 adult children. In addition to all that, she sits on numerous boards in the community and holds various types of licenses in her education and legal professions. And for all of that, to you, my dear sister, I honor you today and dedicate this episode of Stirring the Gumbo Pot to you. So, in this episode, I decided to do an honorable mention dedication. And keeping in the spirit of bringing my episode back home, I decided I wanted to do an honorable mention dedication to Brandon Boogie B. Montreal. Brandon, professionally known as comedian Boogie B, was a native of New Orleans. He died tragically on December 23rd, 2022 from gunshot wounds he sustained as he waited in his vehicle at a downtown New Orleans grocery store just 2 days before Christmas. Now, I first came to know Boogie B from social media. Somebody on my Facebook page had shared his Instagram series called Come Here, Let Me Stress You Out from his New Orleans Hood History series. Now, I don't recall the first video I watched of Boogie B, but I do know that I was immediately hooked. His delivery and his style of just giving you the history lesson pulled me in within seconds and gave me a sock it to me lesson and a big laugh at the same time. He delivered quick, concise history lessons on either a New Orleans neighborhood, a grocery store, a New Orleans tradition, a landmark, or a famous restaurant, or a local bar, or maybe a New Orleans holiday like Mardi Gras, all in 1 minute. If I want to know anything about the New Orleans history and the little neighborhoods here, our historical neighborhoods, all I have to do is go on to one of Boogie B's social media pages and binge out. I mean, he was doing what nobody else was doing, schooling us on our hometown and its unique culture in its own unique way. So if you want to see some of Brandon's videos and his hood history, and come here, let me stress you out a little bit, just go on Instagram or TikTok and put in @comedian Boogie B. You can also find him on YouTube. I recently watched one of his stand-up routines on YouTube, and it was hilarious too. So the world lost a very funny, hilarious comedian from New Orleans. And what's tragic is that, and ironic is that he died from gun violence here in his city that he had left. And he would talk about some of these things on his videos about what neighborhoods was good and which neighborhoods you should avoid, and about the gun violence. And he made light of it and fun of it, but it's just ironic that he died in such a tragic way from the things he spoke about. And he inspired me to have a New Orleans theme to my podcast, right? About the culture and the history of New Orleans. He did his in a comedic way. And so I was inspired by him to call my show Stirring the Gumbo Pot and talk about the culture and the history of Black communities here in the New Orleans area. So, Brandon, you are missed. And New Orleans miss you. I miss you. I miss your videos. And I want to dedicate this portion of my episode to you. May you rest in peace. The comedy world miss you. New Orleans miss you. I miss you. And thank you for leaving us with a wealth of your content, your knowledge, and your comedy. A commentary. My plea for peace and nonviolence amongst my people. By now, you all should know that this podcast is my way of using my voice to inspire, educate, empower, and celebrate the lives of Black folks. So it's because of that I have to talk about the number one issue that's plaguing Black communities today, and that issue is gun violence and Black-on-Black crime. What's crazy to me is how children as young as 9 and 10 years old are able to get their hands on high-powered semi-automatic weapons and use them to commit violent crimes and to kill one another. It's really sad that little Black boys have the ability to get their hands on those type of weapons. Why are so many young Black boys and men killing each other at such an alarming rate? According to my research, as of September 4th, 2023, there have been 167 homicides, 273 shootings, 112 carjackings, and 227 armed robberies in the city of New Orleans alone. And, unfortunately, most of the deceased are young Black men. It really hurts my heart to see so many parents, but more specific, single black mothers burying their children because of gun violence. Some parents have the unfortunate burden of burying more than one of their children due to gun violence. Our children are dying way too young. So what is the root cause of all the senseless violence among young black boys and men today? I believe the underlying reason is the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. That, along with the lack of concern from the federal government to stop the massive amounts of illegal weapons that get into the black communities. Could it also be rooted in anger, bad parenting, or the lack of positive role models in the black communities? Is social media partly to blame, where anyone with access to a cell phone can easily influence someone to do just about any and everything? Why are so many people so quick to pick up a gun to resolve their problems? Conflict resolution is not a part of the public school curriculum in America where it's needed most. A couple of months ago, a hateful 21-year-old white man named Ryan Christopher Palmeter shot and killed 3 black people at a Dollar General store in Jacksonville, Florida, simply because he hated black people. The victims, Angela Carr was 52, Gerald Deshaun Gallion was 29, and Arnold LaGuerre Jr. was only 19 years old. Lives cut short with an AR-15 style semi-automatic gun that the killer purchased legally a few months prior. So it's not just blacks killing blacks, it's hateful, racist white men targeting and killing blacks too. So you would think that we would have more sense than to kill each other, right? So in this episode, I am pleading with all the young black men in New Orleans and black communities across the country to stop killing each other. How many more black mothers will have to bury their children before it stops? Stop the killing or risk going to prison for the rest of your life, or even worse, you're shot and killed in return. Please stop the killing. You're already fighting against a racist system, so does it make sense that you would fight and kill your own brothers and sisters? Please stop the killing. Instead, learn to unite, love, and support each other, because at the end of the day, all you really have is each other. The entire premise of this podcast is to share my knowledge and to motivate people to learn about the history of black people in America. I truly believe that the more we learn and understand the history of our people in America, the better we can navigate our future. It's a Sankofa effect. Sankofa is an African word from the Akan tribe of Ghana that means we should retrieve things of value from our knowledge of our past. I truly believe that, and I stand on that. So, this is a plea for my people to stop the violence against each other. Wake up. Educate yourselves about our history. Show love for each other. Look back to the ones who came before you to understand and appreciate their struggles and the sacrifices that they made. Their sacrifices should not have to be in vain. When I was a little girl, there was this song we used to chant called Angola. Now, I guess it could be considered a slave song or a jubilee, but it was more like a chant. And it is my belief that the song was passed down through generations from the actual prisoners who worked in the fields at the prison. I couldn't remember all the lyrics. I just remembered the little hook. And then I found someone who I grew up with, a good friend of mine, who knows most of it. And he is my very first guest today. I have my very first guest on the Stirring the Gumbo Pot. And his name is Cornbread. He's from my neighborhood. I've been knowing Cornbread most of my life. And he is going to sing the song with me. And then we're going to give y'all a little background about our background of the song and how we came to sing it, and a little other things we're going to talk about Angola. Welcome to the show, Cornbread.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I'm glad you're joining me today to sing the Angola song. So you ready? You ready to give them a little bit?
I am ready.
All right.
Okay.
Take it away.
Angola, when I was one, they booked me for shooting that gun. Way down yonder on that phone, picking that cotton all day long. Angola, when I
I
was
was
two,
two, two,
they booked me for sniffing
sniffing that
that
glue,
glue.
glue, glue, glue.
Way down yonder on
That
that
phone,
phone, picking that cotton all day long.
Angola,
Angola,
and
when I was three, they booked me for
smoking
smoking
that
that
weed.
weed. Way
Down
down
yonder
yonder
on
on
that
that
phone,
phone, picking
picking
that cotton all day long. Angola,
love.
when
Thank
I
you.
was four, they booked me for messing with dope. Way down yonder
On
on
that
that phone,
phone,
picking
picking that
that
cotton
cotton
all
all
night.
day long.
Oh, love.
Angola,
When
when
I
I was
was five,
five, they booked me for taking
no
no
jive,
jive.
jive, jive, jive.
Way down yonder
On
on
that
that phone,
phone, picking
picking
that
that cotton
cotton all
all
day
day long.
long.
Angola,
Angola. Thank you very
when I,
much. Thank you very
all
much.
right. Thank you, thank
That
you, thank you.
that you did good.
I
So
appreciate it.
yeah, so let's just tell the people a little bit about how we came to know that song, because when I was telling Dwayne, my man, about the song, he didn't know what I was talking about. He said, I never heard that song. I said, you don't remember that song? So he said, I bet I know somebody who do know it. And then he called you. And so tell us about how you came to know that song.
Well, when I was young, we had the older guys that was that we was around. We played ball and stuff with. So we had a police bus used to come get us. We played for the park, which was Nord Playground, and we come about where when we get on the bus and to go play, our rivalries, other teams. We always had a chant that was going on the bus on our way there, and we wanted to let them know that we were coming, and so we would sing these songs on the bus, on our way there to the games and things.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the
I remember those days. We did and that's how I came to know it, because it was just a common thing for us to do. See, in New Orleans, we did a lot of like parades. We had the bands and the marching clubs, and we would take buses and ride them to the routes of the parade, and then we would take buses to the city park to tag on the stadium, and school buses. And when we were chanting and cheering, some of these songs came up for us, and Angola was one of those songs. But it wasn't until I started looking at doing some research rather for this episode that it came up for me, this song. And I didn't really quite understand what I was singing back then. But I get it now because my research is based on prison systems. And the thing about the Angola is, what a lot of people don't know is that it was an old slave plantation. But I'm going to tell them about that in a little bit. But tell me about some people who you might know from your past that have spent some time in Angola.
well, we come up with the people that had uncles, friends, cousins, and therefore that was in the system, and they would they would they would they would work they heart out, and they when they was out in the field to keep the sun, from focusing on the sun and focusing on all the harsh things, they come up with a song to sing out there in them fields while they was putting hard labor in. And So when their uncles and them they come home, they will teach. They teach, the people that they're around, their family, their friends. They teach them the song,
Mm-hmm.
and by us being all together, everybody start, want to play a part, want to play a role. So we all start singing and chanting, and it became well known to us the way it was taught to us, and so it's stuck with us. That it's something that we wouldn't forget because we know the pain that they probably was going through when they was doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I grew up, of course, around people who were in Angola, and in fact, I had an ex boyfriend who was in Angola, and I was right out of high school, and I fell in love with this guy who did some bad shit, and he ended up going to jail and got sentenced to 18 years of prison, and he did 9 of those years of prison in Angola, and like a fool in love, I used to get on that bus. I did that for about a year and a half. And that was enough for me. I couldn't do it no more. But the song, it says so much. And now I understand the correlation of the history of the prison by it being a former slave plantation and the chant and what it all meant now. So, yeah. So, anything else you wanted to tell me about the song in Angola? Because I'm gonna give my listeners a little background history on how Angola came about, and it's still being talked about today. And there's some history. There's a lot of history. There's the Angola 3. There's a stage play, as a matter of fact, about the Angola 3, and that is going to be showing at the Carver Theater. I don't know if you know that,
Oh,
if you've seen that, but the Angola 3. I'm not going to go into too much of the history of the three Angola 3, the three individuals who are involved in that story, but it is a stage play. Somebody wrote it for the stage, and it's going to be premiering at the Carver Theater. And the Carver Theater is another whole conversation we could have right here, but I'm going to save that for another episode. But I would like to thank you for joining me. And thank you for being my first guest and singing that song with me. I really appreciate it. And I hope my audience can go back. Some of them probably remember. I know they do. They probably forgot because it was so long ago and nobody sings it anymore. Do you hear it anymore? Anybody know? You don't?
well, no, we don't hear it anymore because it's a whole different generation, and the people that was that was with this, and sung this. We, our generation don't bring it up the way the generation before us and things like that would come in because it was all about teaching someone about that type of when we come up in that kind of atmosphere, that kind of place where they wanted you to learn, they wanted you to know,
Yeah.
just in case you was going down that road, you know, you know, just in case. It
Right.
wasn't saying that you was taking that road, but just in case. They,
Right.
our brothers that was, before us, they would teach us. You understand? This is what we learned from our uncles and our friends, because I know quite a few guys that been down that road, and good friends and stuff. Then some made it, some didn't. But that's the part that it would Angola taught. That's instilled in me.
Right.
Is either you're going to make it or you're not going to make
Right.
it.
Yeah, it's a tough
But
place.
you
Yay.
know,
Yay. They have a very bad
correct.
reputation for hard labor out in the fields, for being what they call, not beating them, but yeah, give them bad treatment, harsh treatment in those prisons, and it's, in Angola. So basically, the
Yes.
song means if you get caught shooting a gun, sniffing glue, smoking that weed, or messing with the dope, or just plain not taking, having a bad reputation, you could end up in that prison out there,
And,
picking that cotton all day long in the hot
yes.
Louisiana sun. Okay. So
Yes.
yeah, that was kind of
Correct.
like a warning song. Is
That's
what it
there you
was. It was
go.
teaching y'all, listen, if y'all do this, then that's where they're gonna lock you up at, and then you're gonna be a slave out there in the cotton fields as a prisoner. Because Louisiana is one of those states that slavery is legal when you're a prisoner. So yeah,
Right.
yeah. So, but anyway, thank you very much. I
It's,
appreciate you joining me, and you and I will talk again. Hopefully, I can bring you on the show on another episode, and we can talk about something else. We might be able to talk because I know you got some stories about that Carver Theater. So,
oh
so
yes.
yes, yes, we do.
It would be my pleasure,
Yeah,
and
and
I
I
thank you for giving me a shout out to do this.
thank you. And look, when you come down here, if the play is playing, I hope you can see it. But I'm gonna go and check out the Angola 3 at the Carver Theater. Coming up soon. I'm gonna
Okay.
check the dates and everything. But that's something I would like to do. So, but thank you anyway, and you take care. Okay.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So here's a little history about the Louisiana State Penitentiary, also known as Angola. Angola is operated by the Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Corrections. It's the largest maximum security prison in the United States, with 6,300 inmates to date. It has a complex history marked by its origin as a slave plantation. It's located on land that was originally an 8,000-acre rice plantation in Tunica, Louisiana, in West Feliciana Parish. The plantation was named Angola after the homeland of its former African slaves. Angola is infamously known for its harsh and brutal treatment of its inmates. Shortly after the 13th Amendment was written and ratified to allow incarceration as the only remaining legal form of slavery in the United States, the Louisiana State Penitentiary was transformed from an old-style slave plantation into a modern-day prison plantation. The state of Louisiana began to fill Angola's cells with black men convicted of committing petty, newly invented crimes such as vagrancy. This was a methodical and deceptive way to keep the prison slave labor train rolling. Over the years, prisoners have staged protests at the conditions that they are forced to endure. To this day, Angola remains a notorious, brutal prison plantation, still filled disproportionately with black men, some political prisoners, some wrongly convicted. Most recently, a group of inmates filed a class action lawsuit contending they've been forced to work in the fields for little to no pay, even when temperatures soared past 100 degrees. They described the conditions as cruel, degrading, and dangerous. According to the lawsuit, the men, most of whom are black, work on the farms, weeding and picking crops by hand, surrounded by armed guards. They claim if they refuse to work or fail to meet quotas, they can be sent to solitary confinement or punished according to the prison disciplinary guidelines. Currently, Angola's prison population is 65% black. There are a total of 57 inmates on death row in Louisiana. However, one of the 57 is a female named Antoinette Frank. Frank is a former police officer of the New Orleans Police Department who, on March 4, 1995, committed a violent armed robbery at a restaurant which resulted in the killing of 2 members of the Vietnamese American family who ran the establishment, as well as a fellow NOPD officer, Ronald A. Williams. Frank is currently awaiting execution for her crime at the Louisiana Corrections Institute for Women. There is a stage play called The Angola 3 that will be running at the Carver Theater on August 20th and 21st and October 20th and 21st and October 27th and 28th. I will dedicate an entire episode to the Angola 3 story after I see the play, so stay tuned for that. And that's going to do it for this episode of Stirring the Gumbo Pot. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening and tuning in. There's more episodes to come. Coming up next is it's poetry time. And I'm going to be reading a poem by Miss Nikki Giovanni called Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks by Nikki Giovanni. This is for the Pullman porters who organized when people said they couldn't, and carried the Pittsburgh Courier and the Chicago Defender to the Black Americans in the South so they would know they were not alone. This is for the Pullman porters who helped Thurgood Marshall go south and come back north to fight the fight that resulted in Brown v. Board of Education. Because even though Kansas is west, and even though Topeka is the birthplace of Gwendolyn Brooks, who wrote the powerful The Chicago Defender Sends a Man to Little Rock, it was the Pullman porters who whispered to the traveling men, both the bluesmen and the racemen, so that they both would know what was going on. This is for the Pullman porters who smiled as if they were happy and laughed like they were tickled when some folks were around, and who silently rejoiced in 1954 when the Supreme Court announced its 9-0 decision that separate is inherently unequal. This is for the Pullman porters who smiled and welcomed a 14-year-old boy onto their train in 1955. They noticed his slight limp that he tried to disguise with a doo-wop walk. They noticed his stutter and probably understood why his mother wanted him out of Chicago during the summer when school was out. 14-year-old black boys with limps and stutters are apt to try to prove themselves in dangerous ways when their mothers aren't around to look after them. So this is for the Pullman porters who looked after that 14-year-old while the train rolled the reverse of the Blues Highway from Chicago to St. Louis to Memphis to Mississippi. This is for the men who kept him safe. And if Emmett Till had been able to stay on the train all summer, he would have maybe grown a bit of a paunch, certainly lost his hair, probably have worn bifocals, and bounced his grandchildren on his knee, telling them about his summer riding the rails. But he had to get off the train and ended up in Money, Mississippi, and was horribly, brutally, inexcusably, and unacceptably murdered. This is for the Pullman porters who, when the sheriff was trying to get the body secretly buried, got Emmett's body on the northbound train, got his body home to Chicago where his mother said, "I want the world to see what they did to my boy." And this is for all of the mothers who cried. And this is for all the people who said never again. And this is for Rosa Parks, whose feet were not so tired. It had been, after all, an ordinary day until the bus driver gave her the opportunity to make history. This is about Mrs. Rosa Parks from Tuskegee, Alabama, who was also the field secretary of the NAACP. This is about the moment Rosa Parks shouldered her cross, put her worldly goods aside, was willing to sacrifice her life so that that young man in Money, Mississippi, who had been so well protected by the Pullman porters, would not have died in vain. When Mrs. Parks said no, a passionate movement was begun. No longer would there be a reliance on the law. There was a higher law. When Mrs. Parks brought that light of hers to expose the evil of the system, the sun came and rested on her shoulders, bringing the heat and the light of truth. Others would follow Mrs. Parks. 4 young men in Greensboro, North Carolina would also say no. Great voices would be raised, singing the praises of God and exhorting us to forgive those who trespass against us. But it was the Pullman porters who safely got Emmett to his granduncle. And it was Mrs. Rosa Parks who could not stand that death. And in not being able to stand it, she sat back down. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stirring the Gumbo Pot podcast. I really appreciate you all listening in and for being a supporter of the show. So in the spirit of Don Cornelius, I wish you all love,